All right. So yeah, last week I decided to do a quick video and got some good responses off of it. The camera's gonna shake. So this is gonna be kind of a thing that I do to keep me from doing a lot of dumb stuff from time to time. Keep me from running my mouth on Facebook and social media in general and saying a lot of stupid stuff that she doesn't have to go through and catch up on, and make sure that I didn't say it. Um, so this week I decided to do something a little bit more personal. This is going to be like non-edited at all. I'm just going to do like straight from the hip. I may edit like the opening and closing of me, like me turning the camera on and off. I don't know. But anyways, I decided to do something completely different. And a lot of people you'll see on the internet these days putting out a lot of things dealing with depression, suicides, PTSD, and so forth. But it's always talking about helping somebody, but nobody is really out there talking about it so much about their own personal issues dealing with depression. And there's very few. I'm not saying that there isn't anybody out there saying that they have depression and whatnot, but it's not a very subject that we talk about in detail. And so today I decided to really open up and talk about my depression and things that I've done. The more I move my hands, so maybe this camera is probably going to shake because I am using a laptop and whatnot. We're not sophisticated folks quite yet. But if this thing kind of goes on, we'll maybe be a little bit more sophisticated other than this beautiful microphone that comes from the podcast. Yeah, so
podcast.
we go ahead and drop the podcast real cheap line.
I do a podcast with my friend Sarah. It's called Two Girls and a Murder. It's
Yeah,
on Apple, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher.
cool. So what is it? What is it? What do you talk about on the podcast?
Well, Sarah and I just kind of goof around, talking for a little bit. We take shots, which you know because you've joined in with us a couple of times. And then we talk about true crime around the CSRA.
Okay, so it's not like a true crime that's national stuff. It's more homegrown kind of information.
Yeah, we're starting out in the CSRA, and then once we run out of stuff, then we'll just move out.
Yeah, maybe go like to like a state deal, and then maybe
Yeah.
go from there and go to like a regional, and then maybe.
But there's a
the
lot
United
of
States.
crime around
Oh,
here,
absolutely.
so I don't think we're
Absolutely.
gonna run out anytime soon.
Yeah, and then maybe you could talk about the corruption that comes with some of the crime because that's kind of a thing that maybe some of the corruption that leads to crime. I have information on stuff like that, and I'll totally talk to you about it on camera because I don't want to expose myself. But anyways, but getting more of this on this is my wife Kasey. She's definitely been around for quite some time. I haven't been able to really shake her quite yet, but. So I wanted to talk about my depression, and not only like the depression that affects me personally, but the things that affect her as being my spouse and having to deal with the manic states that I come in and out of from time to time. So just give you a brief, quick background just on me in general with the depression. It's something that I've dealt with over time, definitely since I was about the age of 18, so 16 years later. I'm still dealing with it. About a year ago, it actually hit one of my largest manic states that I was completely unaware that I'd be able to go through. And we'll get a little bit more in depth on some of that stuff, but it lasted about 6 weeks. And it took some things, took some major hits like on our marriage. It took some major hits on me personally, professionally, and thankful to Kasey and to my sister, who has dealt with some things through her life. They were able to help me get out of it and make the rest of 2019 a lot better, and has made 2020 extremely better so far. So January's been really good. It's over. We're in February
Finally.
now. That seems to be the thing. Like everybody was talking about that. It's like,
It
why
seems
did it
so
seem like 6 months
long.
later we're now getting out of January? But anyway, so like, so give everybody some basic knowledge. I mean, this is going to go on Facebook. This is going to go on YouTube, and the majority of people probably know who we are. Some of them are going to be wrestling fans. Some of them are going to be professional firefighters. Some of them are going to be some of your friends who may or may not know our story. So give the social media world a little background information on Chris and Kasey.
Chris and I have been together for almost 9 years. We 9 years this year. We met working together at an ambulance company. He worked on one side of the company and I worked on the other side, and So we started talking and hanging out, and he took the drive down to Destin when I was on vacation to come and see me. So that was kind of a seal the deal kind of thing. And we've been together ever since. We will be married this year for 5 years. We got engaged in Louisiana, New Orleans, and WrestleMania weekend.
She's looking down, looking at my show notes.
I am, but
Let you know.
I don't need to. You don't have them on there.
She wants to answer all the questions really quick.
Anyways, we got engaged WrestleMania weekend.
Which WrestleMania?
30.
Why was WrestleMania 30 such a big deal in the wrestling world? Do you remember?
No.
There's two reasons. One was the Yes Movement finally made full circle. Okay, so finally Daniel Bryan became the world champion of WWE.
Yeah.
But the biggest one was the streak was ended. The Undertaker streak was ended by Brock Lesnar. Yeah. Fun. Carry on.
Anyway, so we got engaged that weekend. Not at WrestleMania. It was at Jackson Square. That's when we got engaged. And then we got married. 5 years later, this year, we had a baby.
Yeah,
Cody.
Cody.
He's 3 years old. And here we are.
Yeah. Who is named after the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, born which, being a huge wrestling fan, 32 years wrestling fan, this one over here is the one who named him after Cody, not me. So let's just set the record straight. I'm not the one who named Cody after Cody Rhodes. She was.
Me.
Okay, so props, kudos to her.
Thanks.
So, so we've been together for how long?
Almost 9 years.
Almost 9 years.
Are you asking me?
Man, yeah, I'm asking. Almost 9 years. So in this 9 years, we've done a lot of different things.
Yes.
We've gone to Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone to Universal Studios twice. We've gone on a cruise. We went to Antigua for our honeymoon on a Sandals resort. And I'm not bragging here. I'm just going through all the really highlights of stuff. We owned a wrestling company together for almost 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
We've been to several weddings.
Several.
We've watched people. We've been to several funerals.
Unfortunately.
And so you've changed jobs multiple times.
Just 3.
For the better. You've gone. It's progressively gotten better. I've been stuck in the same place, but I'm a professional firefighter. Well, that's what the paperwork says, at least. So I've been there for 12 years. And would you say that some of the hardest moments of our relationship were during the course of owning the professional wrestling company?
Yes.
Yeah. What would you say were some of the things that made that situation such a hard moment for our relationship? Like, it was very early in our relationship.
It was very early.
We'd only been together for like a year, so we weren't even engaged at that point.
Right. It was just hard because I didn't know the business, and so I was learning as I was going. And Chris is a perfectionist when it comes to certain things, and so me trying to stay on track with what I need to do and also make sure that I'm doing it correctly to what you want was very stressful. And then it was just a lot of work, period. Like, even if we didn't have arguments or anything like that, it was just a lot of stuff that we had to do to get the next show ready to go. But it was fun. Day of was fun. Just the 30 days in between was beyond stressful.
Would you say like the act of me trying to be a perfectionist, of taking what had been in my mind and on paper and then creating it with real life moments, dealing with real individuals, not characters that are written on a piece of paper, but then dealing with real people with real problems and dealing with actually maneuvering real, like a real ring and all the processes of production and stuff like that. Would you say that aspect of the striving for what I perceived or expected expectations in my mind of perfection, would you say that kind of put a lot of stress on everybody that was around at that time frame?
Yes.
Because like it wasn't just you.
Right.
I mean, it was like, my sister was involved, my mom was involved, and then like your parents were involved. So it wasn't just this time frame of just the two of us. I mean, it was like a homegrown family deal.
Yeah.
Would you say like any of the other wrestlers or anybody else around us at the time could see the tension that may have spilled onto like a show day between you and me from time to time?
Yeah, definitely. We even had somebody follow us around with a camera one day, Dawson, and he was recording us, and we were arguing on camera.
I still haven't seen that footage, so
I
I
haven't
don't know if
either, Brandon Dawson.
I don't know if that's legit or not.
But
So as time went on, we realized that there wasn't anything major issues between the two of us,
no.
but we realized that one of us was definitely more aggressive, more like a dominant persona, like the alpha and the omega. And so it was safe to say like I was more of the alpha.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like I was a very big leader, not only like in leading positions, but it was kind of a lot of my way or the highway kind of atmosphere. And if I didn't get that or didn't come across an individual like this, I would actually almost position that person to really just, I'm not going to say bow down because that seems really, really intimidating, but basically put them in a position to where they would have to do it my way.
Yeah.
Because of wrestling, because it was my company.
It was your company, yeah. It was either you do it the Wiggins way or no way.
So the reason why I bring that up, and it seems kind of strong and kind of rude, I mean, I was a business owner at that time, so there's a lot of riding on that situation. But unfortunately, when the company, I feel now looking backwards, I feel as the company closed, I kind of kept that same mentality when it came to our household, and that kind of I feel like that put us in a lot of stressful situations. I feel like that possibly eventually became a trigger to the depression, which is why I bring it up. Because it was like I was coming home looking for things. I was trying to find the negative things, and in that process, I had a wrestling company that I felt it wasn't perfect, but it was as close as I could possibly get it, and it was very successful. And I wanted to take that same mentality and apply it to our household. And would you say that eventually, so from like 2016, because right after that, like so 2015 we had gotten married, and then like 2016 we had Cody later in 2016. So like the world had dramatically changed within those several years. So we closed the company down. We got married. We closed the company down. I had gotten promoted at work.
Yeah.
And on top of all of that, like you're pregnant. We have Cody. I'm essentially a firefighter by 24 hours, and then 48 hours later,
Daddy daycare.
I'm daddy daycare. Because so that's coming. Why I bring all this up is because a lot of people don't know is like so most of the time when they're firefighters, so we all work kind of weird shifts. So some people work 12s. Most of us work 24 on, 48 off. Some people work 24 on, 72. We usually have like a side job. I picked up ambulance work from time to time, but when we had Cody, I became daddy daycare. So like I went from basically doing whatever I wanted to do until you got home to being grounded to the house taking care of a newborn. Do you think that any of that have been? I mean, I personally feel that kind of changed my momentum as a person because I was used to being more relaxed, not so much. I've always kind of been weird on time. Like I've always wanted everything to be done within a certain time frame. But do you think like that may have kind of opened up some of the windows of the depression of being stuck, like loss of identity? I know we've talked. So here's the other thing I'm going to add real quick, or not to interrupt this question, but I do go to therapy for all of this. So some of these questions we've kind of already talked about in therapy sessions, but this is kind of an opportunity for us to discuss this publicly. So I mean, so in this process, that I've kind of lost my identity as a human, as Chris.
Well, I think it added stress to you as well because neither one of us really knew what to do. We never had a baby before, so it was a new avenue. And then the whole we used to just pick up and go all the time. I mean, we would go.
Oh, and add the lactose intolerant for 3 months.
Yeah, Cody was lactose intolerant for 3 months. We didn't know it, and he was borderline colic, so that wasn't fun, and that was stressful on both of us.
Yeah.
So yeah, he couldn't pick up and go like he used to. So it was a huge change. Mainly for Chris, it was a huge change.
So we're looking at like 2017, 2018 is where the stress started picking up a little bit. In this process, um, I have started to acknowledge that I had somewhat of an addiction problem. Now I'm not going to go into the addiction problem because it's kind of like a whole nother conversation for another day. But in this process, I've learned, and the reason why I found out is because I started to look more into a financial situation and realizing that I was spending thousands of dollars on this addiction that I had, and I had no accountability to it. So that's when I kind of brought it to you, and I wanted to find more accountability. So the 2018 is when I started going to therapy. So February 14th of 2018, to be exact, when I went to go to therapy for this, and I need to say that like I kind of broke the addiction issues. Everybody has relapse, but they weren't major to the point. But I think over time we kind of started realizing that the marriage isn't, or I thought the marriage wasn't where it was supposed to be, and a lot of that had to do with the expectations that I had laid down from this imaginary relationship that I had built in my head on how things were supposed to go. Like, it was supposed to be off these 2 days, take care of Cody, everything's supposed to be smooth, the house is going to be organized, the yard's going to get cut. And then I realized that I wasn't finding any of the time to be able to do some of these things. So going to work, working some of these mandatory shifts that they were asking us to work, taking care of a kid on 2 days, being a father, being a husband, trying to take care of everything around the house in the same process, and still doing the wrestling thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not physically doing it in the aspect of being a wrestler. I'm doing it as a referee, but
Still the same time.
it's still the same time, right? So that affected everything. So I was basically running out of daylight.
Yeah.
And so eventually, in like over the year, we kind of found out that we had some communication issues. We had some problems. She had expectations, but you weren't talking about them. I had expectations, and I was over talking about them. So we never found a balance. There's no checks and balances in the relationship. So we did find help. So kudos to you for volunteering to go with me, because I mean most people have a hard time getting spouses to get to those type of counseling sessions. So let's just fast forward through all this. So we've kind of found some things that like triggered the depression.
Yeah.
We've watched this relationship change from being young and wild and crazy guys, go and do whatever we want to do, to running a company, still doing whatever we want to do, have a kid, anchor down a little bit more.
Yeah.
Still doing what we want to do though, because we're still going to wrestling shows. We're
Right.
still traveling with this toddler or an infant, and then we started slowly backing out of this. I stopped running as many shows because you said we're kind of burning candle on both ends. How did all this take a toll on you? Like seeing my attitude change with a light switch sometimes.
It was hard because when you were going, I think you've always had depression. Like you said, you've always had depression, and I don't think it's. I think it just comes up every now and then, and so your attitude would change, and you would be angry because I read that depression in men is confused with anger. So I always thought that your anger was towards me. So I was always like, oh God, what did I do? What did I do? And that's what I would always think, until recently when I was doing research on depression with spouses, and I learned that it's not all about me. Like you could be angry at other things, and that I shouldn't be upset because you're angry. I should ask you why you're angry and not just assume. And that's what I always did. I would assume that it was my fault with everything. So
Yeah. So like how did your your day-to-day basis, if was it noticeable that there was a trigger like going on, like that I was in a depression, or that there was something different with my attitude, or was it something that you'd walk in and it was like stepping on bubble wrap and waking up a monster?
yes, I could tell when I would come home from work, when I would walk in, I could tell, like immediately, like how the day was gonna go.
Yeah. So you just didn't know how to react to it,
Right,
more or less.
exactly. Yeah, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know Like sometimes I would be mad and I would just kind of give it back to you because I didn't know, and then sometimes I would just cower out because I didn't know what to do.
Do you feel that it's a common thing for people to recognize anger and depression and some of the triggers, as far as like somebody who's watching it happen, not somebody who's actually involved in it, but like noticing what it is, but not necessarily ever really knowing how to help deal with it?
Yeah, I would know if you were going to be in a bad mood. If you would, I would ask you if you talked to certain people that day, and so that's how I would know how the day would go because some people were triggering. Some conversations I know you would have would be triggering. But I didn't take it as depression because depression never crossed my mind. It was always just anger. That's why I would always say, "Why are you mad?" or "Why are you angry?" Because I didn't think of depression.
Yeah. So the holidays kind of always seem to be like the trigger moments for most people, and it generally is for me because it's a extremely stressful environment. Like coming from a divorced family, like not many people know. Well, I guess more so now these days than ever. But it's like doing the Cupid shuffle, or you're bouncing from house to house and house when I was a kid. So that's one of the things that I really dislike about having holidays because I have to bounce around so much even in modern times. So sometimes it stresses me out. And some days I deal really well with the stress, and then sometimes like it stumbles and bumbles, and I sound like John Madden trying to call a football game with a whole bunch of fumbles involved, um, and it just really just shuts my day down. And before I would just continue with the attitude all day and just kind of I guess be like a tower of terror everywhere. But now it's kind of it, and this is still not. I don't agree with that. This is the way to handle it, but it's a way of trying to handle it now. Is just if I get into a shutdown moment of just letting everybody know that like this is a quarantine area. Like don't mess with me. Don't mess with me anymore until I calm down. Like I'm gonna go be a little baby. I'm gonna go pout in my corner and like, don't mess with me until I come out and I have my little pacifier. I'm good to go. Like, as long as the blanket and the pacifier's in, I'm good to go. So that brings up like the last six to 8 weeks, I guess, of the 2019. Those were probably the worst, right?
Yes.
So when we say the worst, I go into that. I will say that, like it was. I felt it was like nonstop, constantly, just anger. Um, like all my feelings were masked with anger and hostility, and it was just like it didn't matter what you did. If I told you to go left and you went left, I meant for you to go right, and if you did go right, because you knew that that's not really what I was asking for, I'd still yell at you, and it was a lot of me leaving the house and just kind of cowarding out. I guess that's what some people would look at it, but it was just really removing myself from an environment that I couldn't control, and there was a lot of times of just kind of being separated. You knew where I was going, you knew what I was doing. It was just a matter of like, okay, how long before he comes back? Like, how long was he going to stay out on these rides? To Columbia or going to the lake, and or just driving around for hours, or just stopping and going to a favorite watering hole and watching sports that were on television or whatnot. And so like during those time frames, like what was going on with your like what were you thinking? Like how were you feeling? Because like I said, most people will focus the depression side on the actual person who has depression, but we don't ever really think about the people that are the collateral damage of the depression.
I thought that you were gonna come home and tell me that you're done. Every time you left, that's all I thought.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, I can understand that. Most people, that's really what they think, and I mean, fortunately, the therapy helped out a good bit on
Yeah.
that. Um, so, in some of your research that you were looking at and taking, trying to figure out how to handle this, what are some things that you found in the process of researching? And out of those things, what seem to be the things that kind of worked for you and worked for me?
Well, the best one that I found was because I found all kinds of things about, dealing with depression, friends with depression. What do you do when you have depression? But I found a really good one that was about what to do when your spouse is depressed. And um, it was basically, you know, back off a little bit. Like, let them, don't go to them, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, kind of thing. Let them come to you. And I know I had a problem with that, trying to figure out what was going on and trying to solve it for you when I can't solve it for you. Um, and asking questions as in, how's today going? What's going on today? Do you want to talk about anything? That was really helpful. And also recognizing, like I said before, that it's not about you, that it could be about, just something off the wall, at work or with other family members or stuff like that. But to not take defense immediately and to be supportive and to let that person know that you're there when they're ready to talk, but don't force them to talk.
Yeah, I think recognition is always the big moment, which we recognize a lot, but was learning how to actually deal with it. And then some of the things that I learned trying to research and understanding, because I really thought I thought a lot of times I was in the right, and then it took me a while to understand that I was going through a depression state, and what were the things that were actually triggering me in that depression state. And some of the things that I had read on how a spouse, a friend, a family, a roommate can actually help in these processes is if you understand and recognize it and understand some of the triggers. Sometimes it's to remove them and the person who's depressed from the environment they're currently in, because that automatically changes surroundings and could possibly change triggers. But more or less of getting some type of outdoor physical activity. A lot of it was recommendations of going outside, taking a walk around the neighborhood or something. But mostly because like it completely changes your chemical imbalance when you do go outside and you're in the fresh air and you're getting sunlight or just in a different environment in general. The other thing was like possibly come up with a code word, so it's like you're not walking into danger, and just saying like, hey, today is a room full of pineapples, so I am just done with this. And
Pineapple are their code word for a lot of things. I mean,
it
no,
was supposed to be an inside joke. So then now you just gave away the secrets. Man, I really love cantaloupes now. Yeah, so, no. But
it's not a dirty code word.
No, it's not. No, that was our.
Just don't tell.
Yeah. Anyway, so, but that was one of the things, just kind of just say like, it was basically so that where a person wasn't walking into a room full of mousetraps and grenades and mines on the floor, So those are just some things that I think that could possibly help. Those are definitely some things that help in the efforts, because recognition and then realizing that you're not always a problem. Like if you're walking into this and you realize your spouse, your friend, family member is going through a depression state, and they do have an attitude change, like don't assume really quick that you're the reason why.
And see, for the longest time, I thought that myself was a trigger. So I was like, well, how do I remove him from myself? So.
Yeah, recognition of panic attacks, anxiety attacks. There's really a lot that other people can do for them, except for just trying to kind of calm down the environment, or just understanding what some of those triggers are. Some of those things that I have found over time have definitely been thoughts of Cody of just being a complete screw up in his life and not raising him to be a good person, and him coming out to this monster that so far I feel like we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah, he's a pretty good kid.
But the idea that those things that's a trigger. Finances, making sure that like our finances are perfect, which I have learned that takes a lot of education.
I'm trying to teach him that perfect is not life. It's not. I don't want to be perfect, and I don't want him to be perfect, and our house and life is not going to be perfect, and that's okay.
Yeah, and see, like you can even look at this great collage of pictures.
It's probably going to be backwards on the video.
And yeah, and it's still not perfect because I spent a lot of time trying to make that perfect, and those pictures turn from time to time just from movement around us
Well,
that we
and
can't
your
control.
son likes to go and touch them all. And
So that's something
say
that
everybody is.
that's something that I've learned is that I can only control me and a couple of things that go outside of my realm. And for the most part, I got to cut a lot of the stuff outside of me. So basically, I'm the fillet, and I got to cut all the fat around me and just leave that alone because I don't like fat anyways. I'm really terrible. I'm really usually pretty good at analogies. I think it was a terrible analogy right there, folks. And that is that should be like a money jar thing. Anytime I do these videos and I say the word folks, I should have to put like $1 in a jar because I really dislike that word folks. But I use it all the time when I am on camera, and I usually start off a lot of videos. So I have like the last video, it took me 20 times to film that because I opened up with 17 folks. Like, folks, we'll start this off. I was like, this is terrible. This is not me. It's not who I am. But so we did pretty good. So I did like 7 minutes last go around. This one is like 35 minutes. But this is a really good conversation.
Yeah.
So like this is, I'm gonna be honest with you, like this is really good for us.
This is good for us. You don't even have to post this video.
I don't. But this is good for us because it's an opportunity for us to kind of pick each other's brains. And I enjoyed it. I appreciate you hanging out with me for 30 minutes.
My pleasure.
I normally would just go ahead and throw these up here, but it is the big game weekend. I don't want to get slammed with a copyright infringement for saying the other word, the NFL trademark. So I'm not going to post this up until probably like Monday or Tuesday. So that'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on here. I love you very much for doing it. That was not for them. That was for us and for you.
I love you too.
So I enjoyed it, and we'll see you down the road.
Love you.